already on the call. We had a slight change of plans that we were very, very fortunate to actually grab the CEO and co-founder, which we'll hear a lot from. And Ravi, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. So let's just get started. Before we kick off with a overview and an agenda, I just want to let you guys know during and after this webinar, you guys can connect with us at @Desk on Twitter, and you can hashtag #CustomerWins, and you can also, of course, tweet Branchfire at Branchfire. After the webinar, there will be some time for a Q&A with Ravi, as well as you'll be able to listen to this webinar in a recorded form. After we finish, we'll go ahead and post it. So first and foremost, anybody that knows Salesforce knows our lovely safe harbor statement, and I will simply say, please don't base any purchasing decisions on forward-looking statements, but only on currently available technology. Thank you so much. That was exciting for me. I hope it was exciting for all of you. So now the agenda. This is going to be really quick, but it's going to be filled with amazing content. Really briefly, I just want to introduce for the new folks on the phone what Desk.com is and why it's amazing. And then we're really going to dig into who Branchfire is. We're going to talk about how Branchfire views support, and I think this is going to be really amazing for you guys to hear because they take a very, very intentional approach to support, and it's not just fielding questions, but it really informs their entire business model, which is a really fascinating story, and I'm excited for you to hear that. And then finally, we're going to talk specifically about key benefits Branchfire sees in using Desk.com, specifically related to our business insights, technology, and our interface, and how that really improves their business. And then we'll have 10 minutes at the end of this webinar for you guys all to ask questions and have those answered directly by Ravi and myself. And so before we kick it off, and Ravi, are you able to hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Awesome, awesome. Really excited to have you on the call. Thank you so much. And with that, I do, guys, want to recommend or introduce Ravi Bhatt, CEO and co-founder of Branchfire. And Ravi, I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, right?
Yeah, you got it totally correct.
Awesome. And then I am Elvis Greer. I'm a product marketing manager here at Desk.com. And so we'll get right into the content here. And so why Desk.com exists is because we recognize a very, very important gap in the marketplace, and that was an underserved gap. And that was basically small, fast-growing businesses. Startups, yes, but also a swath of other businesses that are really just getting started, starting to see a lot of uptick in the number of sales and the number of inquiries, and really need to scale their support. And because of this, quick scaling in their growing business, they face a lot of challenges that we found. And so number one is that when these new requests, these sales are increasing, businesses just getting more hectic, they're noticing that there is obviously on the onset a lack of process to meet this influx of demand. And what happens is you have potentially great customers that are coming on board to your business, buying your product or your service, and they're actually getting lost or falling through the cracks because there's no systems in place to kind of capture all those inquiries. And then when those inquiries do continue to increase and that demand volume continues to increase, businesses find that they actually need to build process immediately, and they actually need to build that process so that they can scale with the amount of demand, and not just process, but an efficient process. Because if you have a broken process, you're going to continue to see that increase in demand, but you're not going to be able to maintain that stellar support that small companies need or growing companies need today to really remain competitive. And then finally, and yes, for the limited insights, this is actually an article from 1939, and if anybody asks you, in history, there was actually a man who tried to find a needle in the haystack. I don't know the outcome of the story, but I'm pretty sure he didn't find it. But what this, funny article really just represents is that if you have a goal in mind and you don't have the proper tools to carry through on that goal, you're going to fail, or it's going to take you eons to actually accomplish that goal. And so all of these challenges that small companies face, if they can't capitalize on this and they can't build structure and process around this to be successful, you're really going to have unhappy customers. And as a growing business, every single customer matters. And so that brings us to Desk. Like I said, because of these challenges and because of our understanding of the marketplace, we built a solution that's an all-in-one solution. It's out of the box. It's amazingly easy to set up, and it's specifically catered to fast-growing companies. And so we really talk about the offering in three ways. So first, and I've kind of highlighted on the issues, we'll talk about the solutions now, is that number one, small businesses don't have time to labor and process of finding the best support solution and taking weeks or months to implement that solution. A lot of times our customers come to us and say, oh my gosh, I have all of these emails, I don't know how to respond to them, like I really need something yesterday, can you help me? And so yes, we've actually built that product. So Desk.com can be set up in a matter of hours, and guess what? You don't need IT or support to help you do that. You can do it on your own. It's very, very simple. People do it every day, and you could actually, if you're the CEO and maybe you have a few employees, maybe you have, yourself right now. Maybe you're a CEO or, a co-founder and you're running the business yourself. You're the support manager. You're everything. You need something today. You can get that up and running in no time. Optimizing for customers is all about once you have this tool in place, what can Desk do to help you take that service to the next level? And so that really starts, with the organization. That's our universal inbox. And our universal inbox collects all these inquiries and questions from Twitter, Facebook, chat, phone, email, every possible source you can imagine, all into one space so that you can really easily see what's coming in and what people need and how you can service your customers. The optimization part comes in just a lot of functionality, a lot of automations that we put in place that you can actually program to really deflect cases, whether it's a self-support help center or you can automate questions that you get quite frequently that merely by the touch of a button or a few clicks, you can respond to those people. And then finally, taking this to the next level, and this is where I'm really excited for you guys to hear a lot about Branchfire and Robbie, is the measure, adapt, and grow part. And Branchfire, and I'm not going to spoil, the ending here. I'll let Robbie do that for you. But Branchfire truly takes the word support to a whole another level, and they use our business insights tool to not just field requests, but to actually plan, their roadmap, to actually answer people's questions about product and about upcoming features and fix bugs and product improvements before people even have time to ask. I kid you not. And so with that, I would like to really just kind of end on, percentages. We all know you should be skeptical of them. I'm skeptical of them. But I think it really is worth just touching briefly on this slide. These percentages actually come from our customers who are randomly selected, and we just ask them a few questions about how Desk has improved their business. And what you should really just focus on, if nothing else, is that you see a pretty dramatic increase in customer satisfaction by using Desk.com as opposed to nothing, or as opposed to maybe some of our competitors out there. And again, Robbie will be the best person to talk about this. But again, I just want to talk about that briefly. I'm not going to belabor the point. Let's move on. And so with that, I would like to shift gears from Desk.com to Branchfire and introduce to you Robbie, again, CEO and co-founder of Branchfire. And, Robbie, I'd really like to hand it over to you, and if you could really tell the folks on the phone kind of what Branchfire is about, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so it's a pretty easy story. We make software that helps people work better, work smarter on mobile devices. One of our big products in the market right now is a product that's on screen. It's called iAnnotate. It allows you to mark up documents on an iPad, so you can add notes to a PDF, a Word document, PowerPoint file, mark up changes, send them to a colleague, things like that. From a support perspective, it's an interesting story because as an app developer, we have millions of people using our technology in some form in terms of our end user apps. We have over 1.4 million people using it, and you're talking millions of transactions per day, millions of user sessions per week, millions and millions of annotations being made, and there are people doing real work. Without getting into too many specifics, the fun thing for us is just the heterogeneity of how many different use cases we're seeing. We have folks in Hollywood, like on TV shows like Modern Family and CSI, using it. This year we were used at the Oscars and the Grammys, but then on the other side we have large banks and government agencies using the software. So for us, support is this awesome funnel into product development strategy, commercial strategy, seeing what works, seeing also what doesn't work. And from the beginning, we turned an accident into more of a strategy after we started using Desk. The accident was because we started with higher touch support, and many of us who founded the company kind of splitting our time with support and answering questions. We saw some value in high touch support, adding a little bit more color around what our product strategy was and things like that. But when we found Desk, we were able to successfully not only automate it, but accelerate some of the positive things we were seeing. So to give you a couple of anecdotes, the way we use Desk is, we track a different kind of metric, first of all, than I think most people track. I mean, in talking to a lot of support managers out there, it seems that one of the things that folks are doing is tracking how many support tickets an agent is getting. And so it's all about agent productivity. I think it kind of misses the point sometimes, because really what it should be an exercise in is reducing the number of redundant support requests. Like if you have the same person or multiple people keep writing you about this particular issue, it's hard to log into your website, it's hard to reset your password. You could show agent efficiency numbers that are off the charts just by having one agent who just keeps writing back the same boilerplate response. What Desk has allowed us to do is turn something that gets answered many times into a macro, then turn it into a frequently asked question, so that we're hitting it before people even ask us the question again, and then it goes right into the product development queue, and so we almost have like a ranked placing on the backlog. And over time, it means that we've had less and less sort of iterative, redundant support tickets about particular issues, and rather can focus our time on the interesting things. And so what are those interesting
Robbie,
things?
actually,
the interesting
I
things.
didn't mean to interrupt, but I think you brought up a really good point. I want to just make sure that the folks on the phone know, because I know for you and I, it's really just kind of like something we just talk about every day. And so for you guys on the phone, so a macro is one of those amazing features. It's basically a pre-built response for frequently asked questions. And I think Robbie kind of teed that up really well. It's like you get certain questions so many times that you can actually program just a response by merely clicking on a button, and then that really kind of changes who the case is assigned to. It changes what the content in the email says, and it can even actually send off those responses. And so I just kind of wanted to clear that up, and I think you talked really well about a popular use case for that. And so to that, Robbie, I want to ask, because again, you mentioned this as well, and I think this is a really cool story, is that before Desk, and if I understand the story correctly, you guys had 4 agents really just kind of taking in information just via email, right? And through Desk, can you talk a little bit about, and I think now you can have the same or actually an increasing number of support cases with only 1 rep at a time. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, so we've tried almost everything under the sun. So we started with email, like in the worst way possible, where it's totally one-to-one. Everybody has an email account to write to, very little customer self-help kind of material on our website, and that ended up being hugely time-consuming. So yeah, at our peak, we had multiple full-time people, managing what was actually a much smaller customer base. And while there was something valuable there, we just weren't seeing any kind of efficiency. So fast forward, and when we started using Desk, at first it was just merely replacing whatever we had. So we just brought the same number of agents in and allowed them to get more and more efficient. But what we started seeing is that, what was previously taking one person a full-time, 40-plus hour week to get done was starting to take a 30-hour week or a 20-hour week or a 10-hour week. And that surplus time we were using for really cool stuff, like getting smarter insights out of Desk, getting smarter insights out of our customers, figuring out what exactly they're doing, to try to learn things like, well, maybe a a person over here who's an audiobook narrator is doing something very similar to a lawyer, and really they both need this same next feature. And so it's been hugely informative in terms of that kind of qualitative feedback. And that's been a surprising thing, because I think for most of us, we've often thought about support as this very iterative, quantitatively graded thing. I'm surprised by how much qualitative data we've been able to get out of it. So.
Cool. Thank you so much for that clarification. And again, I think a lot of people do, especially a lot of people that are focused on support just as a cost center, look at this as like number of cases coming in, how many cases can we solve, how quickly can we solve them. But again, I think you guys are really showing how a company can take support to the next level and actually use that as a profit center or a value center, and that's pretty amazing. And I know you kind of sprinkled it in as you've been talking, Robbie, but if you could, and I think obviously, and I just want to, for the folks on the phone, I just want to really quickly read. I don't know if Robbie will pat himself on the back, but I'll certainly pat him on the back. There's a really cool review that you guys got in iTunes, and it basically says there was a certain problem a user was having. It was crashing when he was opening a certain file, and he said before he could even complain about it, the problem was fixed. And I think that speaks really, really highly not only of how you view your product and listening to your customers, but I think the story is really amazing how you use business insights to kind of like field those requests and really solve problems before people can even complain about them on iTunes, which again, as an app developer, reviews are huge. And so can you speak a little bit, as we kind of get towards the end here before we get to questions, can you speak a little bit about how you use business insights, kind of what it means to you and how you use that to like affect your product roadmap?
Yeah, so the easy one is, what I think that review is alluding to, when we can see a quick micro trend picking up, it's been very helpful to see, how many baseline questions do we get about Dropbox, and, easily see that, okay, that's escalated right now, and, we've seen, okay, well, this might be something that's on their side, something on our side, and, we have a system administrator figure it out really quickly. So that's one sort of very targeted thing that insights help us get at, which are in the category of problems. But I think that the more interesting thing is the what to work on next. Speaking, I think, for any developer out there, we'll have finite teams. There's what feel like an infinite number of things that you could work on next, whether those are features, new products, and that flexibility can at times be stifling because market competition is not going to be enough to help you figure out what to actually do next. Because then you're waiting for a competitor to do something and you're just in responsive mode. So if you want to be on that predictive end, then I think it's grading up these grassroots signaling factors like, customers are starting to ask for this. They're asking for this integration with that tool. I think that's constantly a work in progress for us. Every time I even think about this, I'm like, oh, we could do a better job here or a better job there. But suffice to say, I think Desk and Business Insights in particular have been very helpful in terms of turning that kind of very granular data, like somebody's asking for a very specific feature and somebody else is asking for another very specific feature, and turning it into actionable next steps for us as a small product team.
Awesome. I think that is a fantastic representation of what Business Insights is, and to even kind of simplify it even more again for those of you on the phone that may not know, Business Insights is a key differentiator for Desk in that it is an analytics platform where, as Robbie just said, you can take data and make that data actionable, and it's actually built into the platform. It's not a separate app that you have to purchase. It's really just part of our solution, baked in, because again, really early on we realized how important data is for support, especially when people are viewing support as a value center, not just a cost center. And I also want to highlight too, before we get to the last slide here, is that of course, like what you mentioned, Robbie, and I think these are really important for the folks on the phone, is that support is more than qualitative; it's quantitative. And support, I think, at its best, is proactive, not reactive. Would you agree about those 2 points?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And so before we go to, the Q&A, Robbie, and again, you guys are such an amazing use case of Desk, and we're really, really, happy. I'm so excited that you were able to join us last minute. But do you have any, quick advice for folks on the call, whether it's related to how you would use Desk early on or just for support in general?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what I think, and then guys on the Desk side, feel free to interrupt if you think that this is not necessarily representative for most people. But as a CEO, or I think maybe more accurately as somebody who's running a small company, I'm always horrified about the prospect of using a new tool or system, and it always feels like, okay, there's going to be a huge learning curve. There's going to be a pretty sizable CapEx on the front end as we do like configuration and all of that kind of stuff. What was very helpful for us with Desk is to not try to over-engineer anything and just to get started quickly, because unlike a lot of tools out there, maybe even unlike some tools that are in the larger portfolio of even Salesforce, I think that Desk scales nicely in that sort of jump in first and kind of play around with it. And I say that because it would have been almost impossible for us to do what we ended up doing with Desk if we'd taken it top down, like tried to come up with the best strategy and be like, okay, 5 months from now we're going to roll out Desk and we're going to engineer every single specific interaction and think about what's going to happen and what the escalation paths are going to be and how we're going to get that into our case tracking software, and then how we're going to integrate this with any CRM we're using on the sales cycle side and all of those different things. Instead, what we did was we sort of replaced what we were doing in the stupidest way, and I literally mean in the stupidest way, and then just started eating away at it. And I think that what that did is that gave us more familiarity with the features that we actually were going to use. And we don't use everything. I don't think any customer out there probably uses everything. That would be a tall order. But the things we use, we know why we're using them, and we know what pain point it's actually solving or what smarter thing it's allowing us to do.
Sorry, Robbie, sorry to interrupt, but I think someone brought up a really important question, and since it's the title of our webinar, I really want to, I know we talked about it secondarily, but I think to really focus on, like, can you maybe give, the folks on the call one or two specific examples of how you used business insights to increase customer loyalty? And again, I know that comment was one, but like how you really hit on that and how you've seen that come to fruition with your business?
Yeah, so I think that this is just the right strategy, and then I think Desk sort of helps you automate that strategy or execute on the strategy. But I think that the most important thing with customers, particularly for an earlier stage product or a product that's in a state of flux, is to bring them onto your side. As an example, see, the Salesforce team here has just brought me in on their side, right? So it's that kind of like reaching your hands around customers and kind of bringing them into your way of thinking, not to try to change the way they're looking at the world, but try to augment the way you're thinking about the world based upon their perspective. And so all of those things that are problems, I don't think we think of them as just problem solutions. So where insights are really helpful, where some of these automation tools are really helpful in terms of driving customer loyalty, it's kind of like this, right? So a group of people complain about something. The reason they're complaining way before anybody else is because they're deep users of the tool, right? And so first blush, I think what we have to recognize is that, okay, these people are actually using this thing so much more than everyone else that they're the first ones to encounter the problem. So it's like, what if we turn them around and make it feel like they're really on our team? And so it's about saying, okay, these 30 people were the first to complain about this particular issue. What if we give them hourly or twice a day updates on what we're doing to solve the problem? What if we then give them an opportunity to give us feedback on, hey, what do you think of this solution for something that's maybe not an easy, quick fix? And so that's been really helpful. I think it was about last year, we were making a change to the way like we have gesture interaction with one of our toolbars, a very, very specific thing. And we had a few people complain about something that we had done. Ultimately, I think we had implemented it wrong. We didn't realize that, but it didn't come up in our testing. It was an easy mistake to make. Several people complained about it. We put together several candidates, and we allowed that complaining group to be the kind of tiebreaker and help us figure out which of these various solutions was the best one. And so it looked like a very small change on the market side. It just looked like we made a tweak, but how we made that tweak had a lot to do with that customer engagement. And from a loyalty perspective, a couple of those people turned into huge evangelists for us, like people we didn't even realize had that kind of pull. One of them in educational software, has been writing lots of extensive blog posts about, going paperless in the classroom and things like that.
That's awesome.
Those are the kinds of things that I think happen, but only if you have your eyes open like that. So.
Cool, thank you. And here's a little bit more basic, but I think really important question is, so it's a two-parter. So number one is, how long did it take you guys to set up Desk.com, and then what are your primary support channels that you receive from, like, is it social, mobile?
Yeah, that's a good question. We got set up. Let me think here. I think it was about 36 hours. It might have been 72, but it's on the order of that magnitude of time. I mean, literally, because what we did is we had an inbound email queue. Step one, it got plugged into Desk. We changed all of our C names and records to have the right pointers. We didn't at first use the FAQ for Desk, using our own homespun one, and then later changed that up. But yeah, we had agents productive there, within basically a day or two of starting. And what we did is we predicted when we were going to have a low volume support weekend, and flipped the switch on a Friday, and had agents kind of doing dual duty in both systems for a little bit. But yeah, it was a really, really fast change.
Great, and thank you. And then I think we have a few more minutes here, but another question that came up I think is really important is that, how do you guys track questions that are most frequent in order and then to know what macros to apply? So how do you basically find as quickly as possible the most important inquiries coming in, and how do you address them?
Oh, that's a really good question. So there's a little bit of an art and a science to that. The simple answer is, you're looking for things that occur commonly, but then, sometimes you have to chunk things together because, there are several different ways of asking for the particular thing. So, for example, sometimes we are simultaneously looking at, people who've asked about something related to Dropbox, and something related to Google Drive, or something related to document storage, and something related to sync, all as part of one thing that we are tracking. And sometimes we have fuzzy sets. So, something is a member of this query, but also a member of this other query, because, you have overlapping questions that you're asking. The way we usually form those assumptions is taking a really deep dive on a few of the longer tickets at all times, so that we're not just doing something really stupid with macros and being like, okay, how many people said Dropbox in the last 30 days, but doing something a little smarter and saying like, okay, here's this one person complaining, here are the kinds of things that they're asking for, and then, doing a lot of, adjusting that way, if that makes sense. Yeah,
perfect. And then, so our last question, and I think this is a really critical one. I can kick us off, and then Robbie, I'd love to hear from you, real world. So someone has asked, could you run off a short list of benefits or takeaways that relate around, that phrase profit value center? And I think, obviously, from a desk perspective, support, in our opinion, is really the window to a business. Like, this is the first interface. Again, support set up correctly and being very attentive are the people that are going to hear your customers first. They're going to know what your customers need, and they're going to know how your customers are going to need that. And so by listening very carefully, not only can, as Robbie's been mentioning, make customers extremely loyal and make customers evangelize for you, but you can also sell customers more. Like the first, response to somebody who's a power user who's asking, like, I want more, can you offer this? That's how new products get developed, right, if it's handled correctly. And so from us, it's really, again, it's really about being proactive and understanding those business opportunities before they turn into problems. And so, I mean, Robbie, some parting words, how would you add to that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, no business really scales if you're going to do a lot of, kind of top-down, outbound business generation. A good chunk of the value of any business has to be customers referring other customers. And, at the end of the day, let's not overcomplicate it. Happy customers that feel like they're stakeholders in a business or in a product are going to be the right kind of evangelist. And, support is one of the best ways to be able to bring about that kind of result.
Cool. Well, Robbie, thank you so much. And, everybody on the call, thank you so much for listening in. And, Robbie, just to direct people who are interested in what Branchfire does, where would you like to send them?
Yeah, you could hit our website, branchfire.com, or Twitter @branchfire. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Robbie, thank you very much for your time, and folks on the call, thank you so much for your time as well. We will be posting this, and we're going to email to all the people that register. We'll email a recording of this. And again, Robbie, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.